GM Authority has just announced that General Motors is really struggling in China. Is this a problem? Yeah, it is actually. Here's why. It's worse than it sounds. General Motors plans on using its profits in China to fund its expansion for electric cars in the US. If it's not making profits in China, which it soon won't be, then US expansion could see some pretty serious roadblocks. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to all the new subscribers. Welcome back, everyone else. Thank you so much for your support, for supporting us on Patreon. If you want to support us on Patreon, I'll put a link in the description. And also, YouTube members. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate you too. If you want to be a YouTube member, you get access to some of our videos in advance. I'll put a link in the description for that. Also, we do have merchandise, so check it out. I'll put a link to the merch store in the description below. General Motors, it exited many countries around the world. Might not be aware of this if you're in the US, but GM used to sell their cars in lots of different countries around the world, and many of those countries they just pulled out of within the last 10 years. More specifically within the last 5 years. For example, in Australia, they just exited completely. $5 billion loss. In fact, it was closer to $7 billion, but they lost a lot of money. They had to pay out all these contracts. There's all this legal stuff that happened. GM did the same thing in other countries. The reason it did this, it actually makes sense long term, was because it was making a loss. In most countries around the world, it was making a loss. China, lots of profits. America, lots of profits. Canada, profits as well. Other countries, not so much. So it pulled out of all those countries, basically like a sunk cost. Went, no, let's cut our losses, move on. That was a good decision, but the decision that they made then, at the same time, they should have gone, hey, hang on a minute. In China, which is our second most important market in the world, everyone wants electric cars. We need to make EVs quickly. And they didn't do that fast enough. So that's why GM is losing money big time in China. GM sales are down 25% in the first quarter of 2023. Down 25% that's not like an aberration. You can't say, oh, this is just because they had a chip shortage or some excuse like that. It's the entire legacy auto market. All the legacy manufacturers outside of Tesla, if you want to classify them as legacy, which they kind of are now actually. If you want to look at the entire auto market, yeah, GM is part of a trend. Chinese companies are taking over within China. It makes sense, and it's nothing to do with the government really. It's simply the fact that there's a lot of Chinese electric car companies. Chinese gasoline-powered companies are struggling. I mean, for example, one of BYD's competition, who makes only gasoline-powered vehicles, went bankrupt. BYD went in and bought their factory for almost nothing, and they turned it into an electric car factory within a matter of a couple of months. So that's what's happening. GM China's sales decreased by 25% to 462,200 during the fourth quarter of 2022. Sales decreased at all 5 GM brands in the country. All 5. Buick, Cadillac, Chevrolet, Baojun, and Wuling. Yes, GM have tried joint ventures with Baojun and Wuling. And Wuling, they make the amazing, very cool $5,000 little mini electric car. They make other cars as well. That's not the only one they make. They make normal size cars as well. Thing is, obviously, Wuling, their bread and butter car is that affordable car, but there's competitors coming along making better cars that look better, perform better, and are the same price. It's a very difficult market, and the competition, they're willing to sell at a loss for who knows how long. I mean, these Chinese automakers, some of them are a bit crazy, and they just say, kill the competition, and they'll just stay in business until the day of death. They're like samurais. They'll just, basically almost kill themselves in order to kill their opposition. That's what's happening in the Chinese auto market right now. First quarter 2023 sales at SAIC General Motors, GM's primary joint venture in China responsible for Buick, Chevrolet, and Cadillac operations, decreased by 34%. That's where most of their profits come from. 173,000 vehicles. Buick sales decreased 35% to 106,300. As you can see, Buick is actually GM's most important brand in China, which is strange when you consider it's not the case at all in America. The all-new GL8 Century, the brand's flagship MPV, gained popularity with more than 5,000 units sold because it's brand new. The Volite EV family continued to post strong growth with sales up 11%. So there you go. EV sales up 11% in a market that's contracting. It's shrinking, right? there's so many players, many EV manufacturers, their sales have decreased. GM, their sales increased, but only for the EVs or the brand new model. The all-new Buick Electric E5 go on sale in April as the brand's first model with Ultium technology. Ultium technology means jack all. There's better technology in China, sorry to say, guys, but hey, it's an EV. It works. People will buy it because it's a GM EV. Lots of them still perceive the brand as being a good brand in China. Chevrolet sales. Well, Chevrolet had the same problem, down 34%. You're talking about the two most important brands for GM in China, both down nearly 35%. Their sales down to 34,300. And this is a continued downwards trajectory. This isn't just 3 months by itself. Now, the one model that did well for Chevy was the Chevy Menlo EV crossover. It had strong sales momentum. I think that's a car that GM China should sell elsewhere. The brand continued to bolster its crossover offensive through the all-new Chevy Seeker, which will be sold as the Trax in North America. Cadillac sales are also very important for the brand. It's still a strong brand for them in China, although it's losing traction constantly, almost every single month. Sales declined for Cadillac as well by 32%, down to 32,500 vehicles. Cadillac CT5 was the best seller with deliveries of 12,000. The Cadillac Lyriq was the growing vehicle here. You've got a vehicle that's selling well, the Cadillac Lyriq, because it's electric. It's also a pretty good car as well. One cool thing the Lyriq got in China. It got an over-the-air update in March, enabling Super Cruise functionality, which will enhance intelligent driving. In other words, it's like a lot like Tesla's autopilot. Works really well, by the way. Now, that was 2022 fourth quarter. Unfortunately, it got even worse for General Motors in the first quarter of this year. First quarter 2023 sales down an additional 17.4% to 289,000 units. It's just down every month. It's like, at what point do you say, well, that's sad. We just invested $20-30 billion over the last decade. Just going to have to write it off. It will happen. Wuling sales decreased 17%, and sales for all other brands increased by approximately that amount as well. The sad thing is here, General Motors does need China. It has made billions of dollars in profits from China. Exactly the same as the Volkswagen Group. It's no different. It's no different to every other legacy automotive company that it needs the profits from China to fund its electric vehicle expansion. Yeah, not just expansion, but just growth, existence. I mean, making EVs to begin with, building the factories, building the production lines. And then you come along and say, well, we've got more than $100 billion in debt. Bank, can we have some more money? And the bank says, no. Well, actually, no, you can, but at a very distressed rate of 7, 8, 9%, which is tough. So GM says, well, government, can we have some money? The government says, yeah, sure, here you go. Here's $2 billion. That's what happened 6 months ago. How many more times will GM need to go and ask the bank, the US government, for money? And how many more times will the US government be willing to say, yep, here you go? Eventually, yeah, that plan won't work out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.